Good evening, everyone. Before I decided to make this video, I was preparing bread dough, because in the summertime, I often like to bake bread. I often like to prepare bread dough late at night so that it can be ready by the morning and put it in an oven. Um, I now have an outdoor oven, and it's a good idea in the summer because you don't. I follow the old school patterns. I don't really like the AC. I don't use AC, and but I follow the old-fashioned patterns and practices to keep the house cool. So you have to open the windows late in the evening, early in the morning. I do have a fan, but there are several strategies, especially in these old homes with the plaster walls and everything, that can it can keep the house relatively cool if you know what you're doing. And a lot of people, they spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on electric bills because they use the AC. Most Americans today, you go around the world, most people don't care about the AC, and if they do, it's very limited. But Americans today are so much wrapped up in a materialist mindset that most Americans cannot even imagine living without an AC. They find it shocking when you tell them. But these are the same people that are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month on electrical bills. So I tend to like to I prepare everything. Most of the things I do are from scratch, and so the bread. I was going to prepare the bread dough to bake in the morning, and and then I was going to take a walk as well, and then I'm going to prepare for my evening vespers. And some of you know, if you are a Christian, you know what vesper. I hope you know what vespers are. They are the evening prayers. You should be doing evening prayer as well. But this video is for those of you who have noticed because I begin to notice a pattern after a time, and I've been noticing this for the past 20 years at least. And it's been among the promises whispered to you by schools, banks, employers, and every sparkling advertisement that parades itself as your future. Work hard. You know what I'm talking about, right? Work hard, play the game, success will come. And yet, oddly enough, for many, perhaps most, success does not come. Certainly not the success that you are thinking about. Um, Not the kind that you were sold, anyway. So, because you did what they said, or at least you thought about it, but the ones getting ahead, well, you look around America today, and the people who are you might see getting ahead, they might be born in the right zip code. If you're British, I'm talking about postcodes. Their uncle knows someone. Their face maybe fits a brochure, and their life looks like an edited photo. They've got Instagram. It's all neat. It's all curated. You look at all these people with Instagram and the social media. It's all very curated. Especially the millennial generation. The millennials are terrified of appearing to be in any way honest and authentic. And you sit quietly and you scroll past it all. You're not quite bitter, maybe, but you're not quite believing anymore either. The vast majority, and I understand the Gen Z generation. I do. I really do. Because you've realized the lie, the scam. Most of you anyway. And that subtle, sour feeling you try to hide under sarcasm or detachment. But let's call it what it really is. It's a lot of you Gen Z people. You believe you feel that the deck is rigged, right? That's why you see so many Gen Z people in that mindset. And in many ways, it is actually it is. And the myth makers don't mind that you are suspicious. They don't really care about you either way. In fact, they count on it because right as your cynicism begins to harden into common sense, they come back with the old spell. It's usually the old spell dressed in new clothes. You can be anything if only you want it enough. To which I reply with equal fervor, and at least in my case it's more honest, no, you most likely cannot. And this creed that was very prevalent. It still is in many ways. It was once printed on. Uh, I remember back in the day when I was growing up. Even it was printed on motivational posters, and now it's all over TikTok. Sometimes you can see it, and on some YouTube channels. So there's a lot of scammers on YouTube who sell this idea, and it has become the catechism of a generation that mistakes ambition for virtue and delusion for hope. But if you have even a single drop of old blood in your veins, and what I mean by old blood, I mean ancestral blood. If you know where you come from, if something in you still respects the soil more than the skyscraper, you may begin to feel that something is deeply off, and you'd be right. And let me elaborate on this, not out of malice, but out of duty. There is a growing affliction among the youth. There's a sort of incurable grandiosity wrapped in the comforting lie that history has ended. The world is X and Y, or whatever it is. And we are all protagonists, sort of, in some Netflix documentary awaiting release. And you have been taught to dream recklessly and to treat reality as a mere obstacle to be bulldozed by your grind set. And you confuse ambition with destiny. You confuse effort with divine right. And worst of all, self expression with greatness. The problem is not so much that you dream, but that a lot of you mistake dreams for plans and fantasies for birthrights. Now, I have no quarrel with aspiration per se. Don't misinterpret me. A man must labor towards something, or else you become soft and mutinous, as you see today in many cases. But there is a vast and uncrossable gulf between aspiration that is rightly measured and the delusion that one is somehow owed a glamorous life merely for believing in oneself. And that sort of thinking, I regret to inform you, was really concocted by bourgeois utopians, if I may use the word bourgeois. Some of you might know what I'm talking about, who mistook rebellion for wisdom and comfort for truth. And that sort of thinking, again, let me apologize for telling you this, but it's the reality. It was stitched together by men who they tore down the divine altars where they should have been kneeling in humility and fear of a holy God, and then they wondered why the heavens fell silent. You see, the truth is far less seductive. Most people, most of you, are born to be ordinary people. You will remain ordinary and you will die ordinary. And if you are blessed, you will do so having lived a quiet life, a quiet, decent life surrounded by people you did not betray. To love a few people well and perhaps to die in the same land that first gave you breath, or alternatively, preferably sometimes even in your ancestral land. Who knows? If you are godly, if you are truly godly, you will do so having lived a modest, honorable life, surrounded by those that whom you did not betray, and who in turn they kept the faith with you. You know, we're living in a time when the young people are taught to chase distant applause and global validation on social media, and yet you suffer alone in crowded rooms. And really, it is an act of defiance and of restoration to be content with your station, to stay in your lane. There is no shame in limits. Most of the world understands this, except the American people. Only a decadent age could teach that the highest sin is to be small. And only the most poisonous ambition makes a man despise the very peace he was born to protect. Now, I understand that this is not a fashionable view. It smells. There's a stench to it, perhaps, of maybe to you, of, I don't know, dust, old wood, ancestral portraits staring down from stone walls. But so be it. It's better to rot in truth than bloom in deceit. You see, once upon a time, it was considered virtuous, not pitiful, to live within the limits of one station. Live within your means. Stay in your lane. There was no shame in being a cobbler, a clerk, a plumber, later on in history, or a quiet man with an honest temper. Today, of course, such contentment is pathologized. The new gospel commands that we must all become CEOs, influencers, visionaries. Never mind that the world only has room for a few of each, and that most of those already in power arrive there not by merit, but by proximity to it. You see, look at America, the vast majority of politicians that we have, they're not there by merit. What talent do you see in Congress? There is no talent in Congress or the White House for that matter. We haven't had a talented president in, I can't even remember, decades ago. Probably since, I would say, since the early 90s, since George Bush Sr., probably. He was a smart man. Even Bill Clinton, although he was, those of you who are old enough to remember, we used to call him Slick Willie. But at least he had some skills with his tongue. No pun intended. The peasant once prayed for good weather back in the medieval period. But a lot of modern men pray to be rich and have a lot of material things. But let me assure you, the farmer, the peasant, had a better chance of being heard by God than you. We live now in an age where people are terrified of seeming small. Everybody's always in competition with their neighbor. But it is precisely, or their coworker for that matter, but it is precisely in your smallness that you are made real. Because all of us, in some way, some more than others, but we are all sons, brothers, neighbors, custodians of little gardens, keepers of old tools, makers of small joys. If that is not enough for you, then I submit you have been poisoned by the devil. You do not have an orderly, godly life. If all you do is think about something that you are not, then you have a serious problem. No wonder so many of you are depressed. You are poisoned by the myth of the better life. This is sold to you in different aspects, lifestyle reels, etc. Always upward, always richer, always more visible. No one tells you that the ladder they're selling has no top. It has no top rung. No one tells you that the man who cannot sit still in his obscurity will never find peace, no matter how many followers he collects. Some of the loneliest people I have ever met are so-called influencers. I even hate to use the word influencers, but they're there. And they're very lonely people. Some of them are very sad people. I know some of them right here in Lynchburg. And some will protest that this talk is defeatist. On the contrary, it is liberating. Because when you cease to believe that you must become exceptional, you are free to become good. Let me end with a comparison. Be careful, it's somewhat vulgar, I'll admit, but it's illustrative of the problem, I think, and I think many of you will understand. You see, the modern economy is not unlike a brothel. You enter full of hope, some coins, whatever it is, the credit card. I don't know what they use now. Thank God I don't go to brothels. I've never been to one, but I know of them. And you believe that you shall be liked. But the brothel survives not by fulfilling your desires, but by selling them. The moment you believe the fantasy is the moment you are most easily fleeced by those prostitutes. It's better to keep your hat on, pay nothing, and walk out the door with your soul intact. So what am I trying to say in this late evening message? Curb your ambitions, not to kill them, but to tame them. You have to temper them with memory, modesty, and the quiet judgment of sober reflection. You are not a loser because you chose a quiet life. You have to seek glory as a knight of old, bound by duty and honor, and shun the vain glimmers that modernity parades as triumph. Stay in your lane and be happy that way. God bless you all.